Welcome to Photoshop WoW 6.4 Tetris 2. Today we're going to talk about templating your old designs, automating the process of taking old designs, your custom album layouts, and converting them into templates for future design use. And then we're going to talk about how to automate the process of dropping images into those templates. We're going to talk about building a template catalog and creating a naming convention for your templates so that you can access them easily and know what you're looking for. And then we're going to talk about customizing templates so that your templates look like custom album layouts and not like a template design. Kind of a quick review of the last few weeks. Today is part 4 of a 6-part series. Week 1, selection logic. Building your album set, grouping your images into layouts and spreads so that you have an idea of what images are going to go on the spread, so when you dive into Photoshop, you've got your grouping already figured out before you start your design process. Week 2, custom album layouts. Building presets in Photoshop for your album layout preset sizes. Utilizing actions for auto guides and drop zone to drop images into your album layouts. Pre-designing with the crop tool by cropping before you ever put the images into the layout, and then building a mental data bank of templates so that you can have a reference when custom designing. And we can see how this is kind of coming full circle, where we're going to take not only that mental data bank of templates, we're going to convert it into our own custom album layouts, and now we're going to make our own custom album layouts into our own set of templates. Last week, we talked about capturing textures, building designer textures, and adding graphics and different elements to the designer textures. We talked about where we can get graphics and how to utilize graphics in the album layout and background. And then we went over processes of how to automate the entire process. Alright, so we are going to close this down and we are going to get started. So the first thing we're going to talk about is converting our old custom album layouts into templates. So as you can see here, I've got the custom album layout that we created a few weeks ago and what it looks like once it's converted into a template. So let's go ahead and launch one of these into Photoshop and let me show you what we're doing. The process is really simple. All we're going to do is we're going to organize the layers into image numbers so that it has a sequence, and then we're going to simply fill it with a neutral gray. I personally like to start on the left and work my way across the top and then across the bottom. So like we read a book, across the top to the bottom on the left hand side, and then across the top and across the bottom on the right hand side. And what I mean by that is this is how I'm going to organize my images. So I take my large left hand image, and that's going to be image 1. And so I double click on the text in the layers palette and just title it image 1. My next image is going to be this top image right here. Again, just double click on the text, image 2. Then I'm going to grab this third image, image 3. Image 4, image 5. Okay, so now anytime I open this template, I know that my first image is going to be the top leftmost image, and my last image is going to be my bottom right hand image. So now what I need to do is go through and I'm going to fill all these images and just turn them into gray nodes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to simply click on my color picker here on the left, and dragging the mouse on the left hand side, I'm just going to drag the mouse till my RGB code comes 128 all the way through. That's 50% gray. And then I'm going to command click right on the image, not on the layer, not on the text, but right on the image in the layers palette. Control click on the PC. Whenever I hold down command, you can see the little marching ants come on the back of the hand. And that tells me it's going to make a selection of that layer. At this point, I can go edit, fill, and I can use foreground color, and it pops it in there. So now I can select the image 2 layer, I got my marching ants. Now I'm going to use a shortcut, Alt-Delete on the Mac, Alt-Backspace on the PC, and that's fill with foreground color. And then I'm going to make a selection of my next layer, Alt-Delete, Alt-Backspace on the PC, go to my next layer, and this would be ready to be saved as a template because I have it all organized and I have everything into my gray nodes. I'm going to do a save as. Now my naming convention is going to be something that I like to think is pretty simple. This is a 10 by 15 book. It's now a template, and this is the first template. And so now, anytime I go into my template sets, which I keep my sets actually, all my 1015s are going to be in one folder, all my 12 by 8s are going to be in another folder, all my 10 by 10s are in another folder, and that way I can always keep them organized. And you can see where a custom album layout has turned into a template for me. Let's go ahead and do one more real quick. So I want to make sure that this top left-hand image is my first image. Now if I just hold down Control on the PC or Command on the Mac and click on my image, it's going to automatically select it for me. So I can just kind of run through this real quickly, making sure that this is image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that way I always know, like I said, it goes top left to bottom right of each page, and that way I can always find the image in the layers palette. So I'm going to quickly go through here and label them. And the nice thing is I only have to do this once. Once the template's created, I never have to come back and do this. Okay, so now I can simply go through and make my selection and fill the images. Make sure you stay on the correct layer. So not only do you select the layer to make a selection, put the marching ants around the images, you have to make sure you actually highlight the layer too so that you fill the correct layer with a gray box. Now, sometimes I get asked, why do you use a gray box? I like to use the gray box and not leave images there because, first of all, it clears my mind of what the design was based around. And so now I'm looking at just strictly a template. And second of all, the 50% gray is very light in image data, and so it reduces my file size to pretty much a bare minimum. So now I can save this. This is a 10 by 15 template 2. And that would be the process of filling all the image openings with 50% gray, how I like to rename my layers and why I rename them in the order I do so that I always know where they go, and then the naming convention of the actual templates so I know at any point looking at a template what size it is, and then I can just see visually how many images are in the template. Okay, now we're going to dive into automatically filling in templates. Now the nice thing is once we've done our full custom album layout, a lot of our album layouts are going to have backgrounds or overlays or underlays, and I'm going to show you this one. This is really cool. And the graphics, everything's applied, and a lot of times I leave that in my templates because it fits the image nodes, it helps surround it, like with the scrolls coming out of the image, it finishes it off, and it's all in layers. So let's open one up here. So the template's all in layers here, and I can adjust the color of this background to whatever I need. I can change it all up to what I need for any image that goes in here. And let me show you. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill this image And the way to fill it without having to worry about the crop or anything like that, I just want to be able to drop the image in. It's a multi-step process, and we're going to do this process a couple times. The first thing I do is I duplicate my layer. After duplicating the layer, I right-click on the layer and I convert it to a smart object. And then I right-click again, create a clipping mask. This is going to clip the smart object down into my original layer. And then I'm going to right-click a third time and I'm going to replace contents. And this brings up an open dialog box. This is going to allow me to grab some images here. So let's just grab this large image. And it pops that image in there for me. Now I can free transform the image. Now hold down Shift and it pull from the corners and it maintains proportions. Or if I hold down Shift and Alt, it will transform from center. And so, as long as I don't go on the inside, because then I can see my gray box and that tells me that I've gone too far past my template. And then I can press Enter, and then I hit Control E on the PC or Command E on the Mac, and it merges my smart object into my gray node, and now that image is placed and dropped into my album layout. Now here's a great time that I can look at this and go, okay, now the green background is definitely not working for this image. So I can double click on my background color here and I can grab like a nice warm ambery red background that complements this image. And now I'm ready to go to my next image and keep filling this album layout out. So I right click. First I have to make sure I select the correct layer. So you know what? I'm going to work on this top image. I like to work, like I said, top to bottom, left to right. So I'm going to start with this top image, duplicate the layer, right click, convert to smart object, right click, create clipping mask, right click, replace contents. Grab my first image. It's going to drop the image in there. At this point I can hit free transform. That's Command T, Control T on the PC. I'm going to hold down Alt and Shift and just kind of transform this from the center and just kind of scale it in there to fit. I might make them just a little bit bigger there. And then I hit Command E or Control E on the PC and it just locks it in there for me. I'm ready to move to my next layer. Duplicate, right click, convert to smart object, right click, create clipping mask, right click, replace contents, and place. Free transform, scale it in to fit, press enter, Command E, and it locks it in there. Okay, so you know me, I don't like to do anything more than once when it comes to multiple steps. And so I want to automate the process of dropping this image in there and all the right clicks. I don't want to have to do all those right clicks. So this is what I call my add image. We're just going to duplicate this action. Add image. I'm just going to drop a 2 on there so I know which one to throw away later. And it's going to mimic everything that I do. So I'm going to have it duplicate the layer. So it's going to do a new layer via copy. And then I'm going to right click and create a smart object with it. I'm going to right click and create a clipping mask. And then I'm going to do an insert menu item instead of that third right click. I'm going to insert the menu item of layer, smart object, replace contents, and press OK. And then I'm going to assume that it has put an image in here because I'm just writing the action, and so I'm going to pretend that we've put an image in here. So the next thing I would want to do is free transform. So again, I'm going to do an insert menu item, edit, free transform, press OK, and then the final thing we do is merge that image into the original layer with a Command E or a Control E on the PC. And then I would stop my action, and let's test this out. So it's asking me to open it up. Perfect. It's going to drop it in there and replace it. It's going to give me my free transform handles. I can resize this down. When I press enter, over here it locks it in. So that's how I automate the process of what I call my add image, which is my smart object concept of filling in template album layouts without having to worry about what size the crop is. And I also don't have to worry about the resolution of the individual image because it's using smart object technology to start off with. So we're utilizing the full mathematics of the image, or the full size of the image, to start off with, so we're not going to get any sort of artifacting in the free transform. Okay, so let's do this one more time. I'm going to skip over template 2 for now. We're going to come back to that one here in just a minute. And we're going to fill this template 3 in, and we're going to use our new action. Show you just how quickly we can work. Now I like to work in this full frame mode. We can compress that action. And I'm going to start with image 1 and press play. And I'm going to put this windshield shot in here. Free transform that down in there to fit. I might just size it just enough to get that highlight of the roof out of the shot. Press enter there. Let's go fill in my next image. I make sure I select the new layer. I've done that so many times where I accidentally replaced the wrong layer. Size this down to fit. Now here's the cool thing. So the template's filled in. It's all locked in, ready to go. Obviously this brown background is completely off. And so I'm just going to go grab a little color out of my image, and you can see how this just finalizes and finishes out the template really nice. I'd be ready to save it and move on. Okay, so along the lines of being able to save and move on really quickly, something that I see a lot of photographers do, and I do occasionally also, is what I call template selection logic. So all the way back to the first week where we do our selection logic, if you're going to do your entire album via templates, it might be advantageous for you to actually go in and copy your templates into your album selection logic in Bridge or whatever software you're using, and at that point you can actually just save the file back to it. And here's what I mean. So like this first set would be my selection logic for this template, and then this image is going to be my selection logic for this template, and then this would be my third. So I would do my color coding system. So red, yellow, green. And so I'm including the template in the process, so as I do my designs, I can simply pull the design and then I hit save to the template, and it just pops it right back in here, and then I can pull all my PSD templates into a separate folder for my final project. Okay, so let's open template. This is a lot of fun. So last week we learned about adding textures and graphics to backgrounds. So occasionally I'll do a template where I will add a texture over an image. And so this is actually a template. You can see here, image 1, it's a full panoramic spread, and it's got 3 textures over it. So I'm going to go ahead and add this image. And the nice thing is the guides are already built into your templates because you put your guides in the very first time you design. And then I'm just going to slide this over. I want them to fill up this right hand page as much as possible. Just make this a really dynamic shot. I don't need to worry about my guides anymore, so I can turn those off. And you can see this is fully textured and ready to go. I even left clipping mask, or excuse me, layer mask on here, so I can grab my brush on black at about 30%, and I can brush it off of their skin and a little bit off of the suit. I can go through the different textures and maybe just take a little bit off of them. I love the effect it's leaving on the dress, so I might leave that on there. And then I might zoom in and go to 100% on my brush and just go through and actually get all the texture off of their faces. There we go. And that would be fully textured and finished as an album layout and ready to go. And the nice thing is I could just hit save because the template is already, I'm not saving over one of my templates. I have copied the template into my selection logic, and so when I go back I can see where I now have my finished album template. Okay, so I'm going to skip over to, I'm going to fill these in real quick for us. Okay, so now I've got my 3 templates here filled in for us. Now what I would do before I copy these templates over into a PSD folder for just my overall album layout, I'd grab all my templates, pull them to the very front here, and then so that they stay in order, this would be 02, 03, just do a slow click, 04, 05. It's very important to keep them in order and keep my naming convention, 06, 07. And at this point, then I could go ahead and take and drag these templates into my PSD folder. Actually, I'd move them, and my selection logic on my imagery stays, and then my album layouts are all by themselves. Okay, so we've talked about utilizing our custom album layouts, creating our own templates, and I know some of us have probably already purchased templates from other photographers and designers out there, and we've got all these templates, and some of y'all might be wondering, how can we utilize some of this process on templates that we already own? Let me show you a little bit of what we can do. So I'm going to jump into Photoshop and build one of the templates that I do real quick. And there's a million different ways of doing templates, but this works as long as you have layers in Photoshop. You're going to be able to adjust your templates in many different ways. So here's a template that I can go ahead, turn this text layer off. That's a habit of mine because I like to just get rid of that first and foremost. And then I'm going to play my add image. It's just a template with layers. If your template comes with all the images grouped into clusters, you can just go and select them and pull each and cut each image into its own layer, which is really nice. So it gives you that would give you the ability to take templates and cut them up and then turn them into usable templates for you to customize. And so at this point I can add image. Let's go to some album files here, and we'll add in this first image. Nothing wrong with that. We'll just shrink it down, holding down Alt and Shift. Kind of lines right in there. Lock that image in. So you can see it's the same exact process with a ready-made template versus a custom template. The nice thing is once we fill this in, we can completely automate it. Excuse me, customize it, not automate it. We're automating it right now. So we can customize this. Free transform handles pop up so big that the image is just way off the page like this. I hit Command 0 or Control 0 on the PC, and it fits everything, including your free transform handles, and then in Control 0 again, and that fits everything to your screen, which is a really nice way of quickly zooming in and out. Okay, and so now I'm going to add the last image here, this large image. Let that image drop in there. Now this is a full bleed image. Again, Command 0 brings all my transform handles in. That's a full bleed image, and if you remember from a few weeks ago, we talked about our safe zone, and since her feet are so close to the edge, I'm going to make sure I line up the bottom right hand corner so that I can get as much of the front of the bike and her feet as close to that 1/2 inch as I can. And the reason it just kind of snapped in there, you see how it's just kind of snapping right to the edge. Under view, I have snap turned on. Okay, now holding down shift again. I always hold down shift, and then I'm just going to kind of fill this in as tight as possible here. Press enter, and so now I have a layout filled out from a template. I'm going to turn those guides back on. Here's the nice thing. We can just kind of grab this whole group. We can move it around. We might lower it down here. And then along the lines of the stuff that we talked about last week with being able to customize templates and create backgrounds, I can now go to my background layer, go to my adjustment layer, solid color. This is the exact same process that we did last week. Pick an image, or excuse me, pick a color from the image. And now I can grab my romance action and go grab me a texture and drop a texture back here to kind of break this up a little bit so it's not so perfectly smooth. I might duplicate that texture just to give it a little extra. And that's how we could customize the background and customize out a template layout to give it a custom album look. Okay, so that's one way of automating a template. Let me show you another way where we can modify and completely adjust a template. So let's say I like this layout. Let's fill in with these images. So I have my 3 here on the left. I see my 3 on the left. And then I have my 1 image on the right. This image on the right is not really going to work well as a square crop. So what I want to do is I'm just going to take these 3 images. Let's throw away that text. I always throw away the text. So I'm going to take these 3 images on the left and I'm just going to push them over to this 1/2 inch guide. And then I'm going to take the template node on the right here, image 4, and I'm going to free transform it, and I'm just going to stretch it to fit. Kind of eyeball that a little bit. And the nice thing is, it's just a gray box, so it doesn't matter that I've stretched it. So now I've just basically built me a completely new template, and I can add image. So grab this image. You can see here now I can fill this in, maybe rotate it just a touch, and I can drop this image in here the way I want to. I can check it with my guides, make sure that I've got their heads in a really nice place. I like it. It's nice and centered on that right hand page. And then I can start adding the images in from the left. Free transform that in, holding down Alt and Shift. You know what? I don't like the fact that I got off the horizon a little bit, so I'm just going to clip the horizon out. You can see it's just locking them in there. So this works with any template that gives you layers. And so your custom album layouts that you've created, you can template them. Template software that gives you layers in Photoshop, you can utilize this. And this gives you the freedom to adjust it to fit your imagery and add custom backgrounds. Alright, keeping that horizon out of there just a little bit. And then again, I could go add me a little color background, maybe pick a little of the watercolor there. I'm going to go into my fashion actions, grab a romance texture. Let's get something just nice and curly Q squirrely. Maybe rotate that, transform it to fit, slide it over. You know what, I'm just going to skew it in there because I want that vignetting to show up. And that's how I'd completely customize an automated template. And so That is Tetris 2, taking today's design and making tomorrow's faster and better. Next week, we're going to dive into what I call Go Hollywood color tricks, breaking the rules for impact, boundaries, when to create them and how to break them, um, making this center line really work for you, and then automation tricks, things we can do to really speed up the process. For example, if I want to go ahead and maybe blue tone these three images on the left, I can just kind of do a quick tone, but if the client says they don't like that, I can take it right back off. It makes not only adjustments, but it makes changes really, really quickly. So appreciate you listening and have a great day.